My mom has a tattoo just like yours. 7 words spoken by a child who had no idea she was pulling a thread that had been waiting 12 years to be pulled. What unraveled when she pulled it was not what anyone in that room expected. The diner was called Patty's, and it sat on the junction of Route 12 and County Road 7 in a part of rural Montana where the distances between things were large enough that a place to sit down and drink something hot felt like a genuine gift from a landscape. It had 12 tables, a counter with 8 stools, a pie case that was taken seriously, and an owner named Patty Greer who had been making the same biscuit recipe for 31 years and saw no reason to change it. On a Thursday afternoon in late September, the diner held the specific population of a rural establishment between lunch and dinner. A table of ranchers finishing coffee, 2 women sharing a slice of the huckleberry pie, a man in overalls reading a newspaper that was 3 days old. The particular unhurried quality of people who have nowhere urgent to be and are making deliberate use of that fact. Maya Chin sat in the corner booth by the window. She was 9 years old and small for it, with dark eyes that moved over everything with the specific quality of a child who has been read to since before she could walk and has developed the habit of treating the world as a text worth close attention. She had her mother's dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and her father's jaw, which she had inherited along with his stubbornness and his inability to leave a question unanswered once it had presented itself. She had a book open on the table in front of her. She was not reading it. She was watching the door. Her mother was 23 minutes late, which was not unusual. Lin Chun worked the day shift at the county hospital 40 minutes up the road, and the day shift had a way of becoming the day-and-a-half shift when the emergency department decided to have opinions about the schedule. Maya had been waiting in this booth 3 times in the last month. She knew Patty's name, and Patty knew hers, and the arrangement was understood. Maya would have a hot chocolate and a piece of whatever pie was freshest, and she would sit in the corner booth and wait, and Lynn would arrive eventually in her scrubs with her hair coming loose from its bun, and her eyes carrying the specific tiredness of a person who has been responsible for other people's lives for 10 hours straight. Maya was fine with waiting. She was good at it. She looked at her book. She looked at the window. She looked at the pie case. She looked at the door. The door opened. Not her mother. The man who came through first was large in the way that fills a doorframe, without trying. He was in his mid-50s with a gray-shot beard and pale eyes and a black leather vest over a dark Henley. Behind him came another man, then another, then 4 more, until there were 7 of them filling the entrance of Patty's Diner with leather and road miles, and the specific collective presence of men who had been moving fast for a long time and had stopped. The ranchers looked up. The women at the pie table looked up. The man with the newspaper looked up and then very deliberately looked back down. Patty came out from behind the counter with the specific composure of a woman who has run a diner for 31 years and has seen every configuration of humanity come through her door and has made peace with all of them. "Find yourself some seats," she said. "Coffee, please," said the man in front. His voice was level and unhurried. They settled. 2 tables pushed together without asking, which Patty did not mind because she had done it herself before they got to it. They moved with the ease of men who had done this in 100 diners and knew the geometry of it. Maya watched them. She watched the way they arranged themselves, the older man at the head of the pushed-together tables, the others distributing around him in a pattern that was not assigned but was also not random. She watched the way they picked up the menus, and she watched the way some of them didn't bother because they already knew what they wanted, or because they were the kind of men who made decisions about food the same way they made decisions about everything else. Fast and final. She looked at the man at the head of the table. He had his forearm resting on the table edge, his sleeve pushed up to the elbow from the warmth of the diner after the cold of the road. His forearm was weathered and marked with several tattoos, but one of them caught the light differently from the others. One of them had a quality that the others did not. Maya looked at it. She looked at it for a long time. She looked at the crane in flight, at the single character beneath it, at the specific way the crane's wings were positioned, tilted slightly left, one feather at the wingtip drawn with a particular curl that she had seen every night of her life when her mother lifted her arms to reach something on a high shelf or changed out of her work clothes without thinking about who was watching. Maya closed her book. She slid out of the booth. She walked across Patty's Diner with the deliberate purposefulness of a 9-year-old who has identified something that requires investigation and has not yet learned that some investigations are better left to adults. She stopped at the edge of the pushed-together tables. The man at the head looked up. His pale eyes found her and assessed her with the speed of someone accustomed to reading situations quickly, and arrived at the conclusion that she was 9 years old and curious, and therefore not a situation. "Hi," Maya said. "Hi there," he said. Maya looked at his forearm. "My mom has a tattoo just like yours," she said. The diner did not go quiet dramatically. It went quiet the way things go quiet when a specific sentence lands in a specific room, and the room does not yet know what to do with it. Not a gasp. Not a sudden silence. Just a gradual reduction in ambient sound as the people nearest to the pushed-together tables registered something in the quality of what had just been said without being able to name what they were registering. The man looked at Maya. His name was Jack Reeves, and he had been called Iron Wall for 22 years because of a specific incident in Spokane that the chapter still told stories about and that Jack himself never discussed. He was 54 years old and had been the chapter president for 9 of those years, and had in that time developed the ability to receive unexpected information without showing what it cost him to receive it. He was using that ability now. "Is that right?" he said. Not a question. The flat receipt of information while the internal processing ran. "Yes," Maya said. She pointed at his forearm with the direct economy of a child who has not yet learned that pointing is considered rude. "The bird, and the symbol underneath. My mom has the same one, on her shoulder." Jack looked at his forearm. He looked at the crane, at the character beneath it. He looked at Maya. "What's the symbol mean?" he said. "Remain," Maya said immediately. "In Mandarin. My mom taught me." The man to Jack's left, a broad-shouldered man named Curtis, who had been with the chapter for 15 years, set down his coffee cup with a sound that was slightly too deliberate for a casual action. Jack looked at the tattoo for a moment longer. Then he looked at Maya with the full weight of his attention, the kind of attention that people feel physically when it is directed at them. The attention of a man who has just heard something that has reorganized everything else in the room into background. "What's your name?" he said. "Maya." "Maya. How old are you?" 9. "Your mom's name?" Jack said. His voice was completely even. "What's your mom's name?" Maya looked at him. She was 9 and perceptive, and she understood that the question had a different quality from the questions before it. That this question was not small talk. That this question mattered in some way she could not fully map yet, but could feel the edges of. "Lin," she said. "Lin Chun." Jack Reeves did not move. He sat at the head of the pushed-together tables in Patty's Diner on Route 12 in rural Montana, and he did not move for a count of 4 seconds that felt in the room like something considerably longer. Then he pushed back his chair. He stood up. He walked to the door of the diner and pushed through it into the September afternoon without a word. The chapter watched him go. Curtis looked at Maya. Maya looked at the door. "Did I say something wrong?" she said. Curtis picked up his coffee cup again. "No," he said. "You said something right. Sit down with us a minute." Maya considered this. She looked at her booth. She looked at the pushed-together tables with the 6 remaining men in leather. She pulled out the nearest chair and sat down. Outside, Jack stood in the parking lot with his back to the diner and his phone in his hand. The September afternoon in Montana had the specific quality of September in that part of the world, the light going slightly golden before it was entitled to, the air carrying the first suggestion of what was coming. He stood in it without feeling it. He dialed. The phone rang twice. A man's voice, younger than Jack by 16 years, but worn in the same specific way that men get worn when they have been through something that changed the texture of everything after it. "Jack." "Danny," Jack said. "I need you to listen to me." "What happened?" "Nothing happened," Jack said. "Something is happening. Right now. I need you to listen." A pause. "I'm listening." "I'm in a diner in Cascade County, Montana," Jack said. "A little girl just walked up to my table and told me her mother has the same tattoo as mine. Same crane. Same character. Same placement. The silence on the other end of the line was the kind of silence that contains several things arriving simultaneously. Jack had learned to read Danny's silences the way you learn to read when weather has consequences for you personally. This silence contained disbelief, and underneath the disbelief, something more complicated. Something that had been waiting 14 years for a door to open and was now standing at one. Her name, Danny said. Lin Chun, Jack said. Danny did not speak. Danny, I heard you. The little girl is 9 years old, Jack said. Her name is Maya. She's sitting in a diner right now with Curtis. Is she? Danny stopped. Started again. Is she okay? She's fine, Jack said. She walked up to my table and told me about the tattoo, like she was commenting on the weather. She had no idea. She had no idea, Danny repeated. No, Jack said. Lynn never told her. Another silence. This one different. This one carrying the specific weight of a man processing what it means that a woman kept a secret for 12 years, and what that secret being kept says about the woman who kept it. Where are you exactly? Danny said. Patty's Diner, junction of Route 12 and County Road 7. I'm in Billings, Danny said. I know where you are. That's 2 hours. I know how far it is. A pause. Jack. Yeah. Don't let them leave. I'm not going anywhere, Jack said. Drive. He hung up. He stood in the parking lot for another moment. He looked at the 7 bikes lined up along the diner front. He looked at the sky. He went back inside. Maya was at the push-together tables between Curtis and a younger man named Rio, who had been showing her something on his phone that had made her laugh. The laugh was brief and surprised in the way 9-year-old laughs are when something catches them off guard. Jack sat back down. Maya looked at him. Your mom, Jack said. She works at the hospital? County General, Maya said. Day shift. She's usually done by 4, but sometimes it goes longer. What does she do there? She's a nurse, Maya said. She takes care of people who are very sick. She paused. She's good at it. I know she is, Jack said. Maya looked at him. How do you know that? She said. Jack looked at the tattoo on his forearm. Because of this, he said. Maya looked at the crane, at the character, at the same image she had seen on her mother's shoulder her entire life, familiar as furniture, present as breathing, never explained. What does it mean? She said. I mean, I know what the character means. But what does it mean? Why do you have it? Jack looked at her. That, he said, is a story that belongs to your mother first. But I think you're going to hear it today. Maya looked at him for a long moment with those dark, precise eyes. Then she reached across the table and picked up the menu. Okay, she said. Can I get the huckleberry pie while we wait? Curtis made a sound that was the beginning of a laugh that he redirected into his coffee cup. Yeah, Jack said. You can get the pie. Patty brought the pie without being asked. She had been running this diner for 31 years, and she had learned that there were moments in a room that required food and moments that required leaving people alone and moments that required both simultaneously. She set the huckleberry pie in front of Maya with a fork and a paper napkin and topped off every coffee cup at the pushed-together tables without making eye contact with anyone and went back to the counter. Maya ate with the focused attention she gave everything. The chapter watched her in the way that large men in leather sometimes watch children, with the specific gentleness that the presence of a child produces in people who spend most of their time in the world of adults. It is not performed. It is just the automatic recalibration of a room when something small and honest enters it. How long have you lived in Montana? Curtis asked her. For years, Maya said. We came from Seattle. Curtis looked at Jack. Jack looked at his coffee. Do you like it here? Rio asked. I like the sky, Maya said. It's bigger here. In Seattle, you couldn't see as much of it. She took another bite of pie. I miss the ocean, though. What do you miss about it? The sound, Maya said. At night. My mom used to keep the window open so we could hear it. She said it with the matter-of-fact quality of a child reporting a preference rather than a loss. But underneath the matter-of-fact was the specific texture of something that had been true and was now only memory. The ocean through the window at night, before Montana, before the county hospital, Before, whatever it was that had moved them from Seattle to a rural junction in a state that was as far from an ocean as you could get. Jack heard the texture underneath. He thought about Seattle 14 years ago. About a hospital waiting room, with chairs the color of old mustard and a television mounted in the corner running news that nobody was watching. About Danny, at 38 years old, which was also somehow 22 in Jack's memory, because Danny had always been 22 to him, regardless of the calendar. About the specific quality of the weeks before the donor match. About what those weeks had looked like from the outside and what they had felt like from the inside. About the woman who had come into the room. Not dramatically, not with any announcement. She had simply been there one day, a small woman with dark hair and the eyes of someone who had made a decision and was living inside it. She had spoken to the coordinator. She had sat in the chair next to Jack while the paperwork was processed, and she had said almost nothing except that she had read about Danny's case through the donor registry, and that she matched, and that she had decided. Why? Jack had asked her, not rudely, genuinely. She had looked at him. Because I could, she had said. That's enough. He had not known what to do with that answer. He still didn't, 14 years later. He had spent those 14 years trying to find a container for it, and had not found one. Can I ask you something? Maya said. Jack came back to the diner. Sure, he said. That tattoo. The character. Did you pick it, or did someone pick it for you? Jack looked at his forearm. Someone taught it to me, he said. What it meant. I had it done the next morning. The next morning after what? After something important happened, Jack said. Something that changed things. Maya considered this. My mom got hers after something important too, she said. She never told me what. I used to ask when I was little, and she would say someday, and then I got older and stopped asking because you figure out when someday means something different. Jack looked at her. What does someday mean when it means something different? He said. Maya looked at her pie. It means the story is real, she said, and your mom doesn't know how to tell you the real version yet. The table was quiet for a moment. Outside through the diner window, the September afternoon was doing what September afternoons do in Montana, deepening. The light going from the thin gold of midday to the richer, longer gold of late afternoon that made everything it touched look like it had been considered. Your mom is going to be here soon, Jack said. Probably, Maya said. When her shift runs over, it usually runs by about an hour, so maybe 30 more minutes. When she gets here, Jack said, I need you to do something for me. Maya looked at him. I need you to let me talk to her first, he said, before she sees us all. Can you do that? Maya looked at the table of bikers, at Curtis with his gray beard and steady eyes, at Rio, who had shown her something funny on his phone, at Jack with his forearm on the table, and the tattoo that matched her mother's in a way she still did not fully understand. Why, she said. Because seeing us is going to be a surprise for her, Jack said. And some surprises need a little space before they become the good kind. Maya thought about this with the seriousness she gave everything. Is it going to be a good surprise? She said. Jack looked at the door. I think so, he said. I hope so. You hope so, Maya repeated. She picked up her fork. That's honest. I try to be, Jack said. Maya ate the last of her pie. She looked at the window, at the parking lot where 7 Harleys sat in a line, at the road beyond where in some direction her mother was driving toward this diner in her scrubs with her hair coming loose from its bun. She thought about the tattoo she had seen every night of her life on her mother's left shoulder. The crane in flight, the character beneath it. Remain. She had always thought it meant something about her mother's decision to stay, to remain in whatever place she was, to remain present, to remain steady. She was beginning to understand that it meant something more specific than that. That remain referred to a particular moment and a particular decision, and that the decision had something to do with the man across the table whose forearm carried the same crane and the same character, and whose pale eyes were watching the door with the specific attention of someone who has been waiting for something for a very long time and has just been told it is 30 minutes away. She's going to be okay, Maya said, when she sees you. Jack looked at her. You don't know that, he said. No, Maya said, but she's my mom. She's okay with most things. She set down her fork. She cried once, Maya said, when she thought I was asleep. I was 7. She was sitting at the kitchen table looking at her shoulder in the mirror, and she cried. Not sad crying, the other kind. Jack looked at the table. The other kind, he said. You know, Maya said, when something was hard and then it was over and the being overness of it hits you all at once. Jack pressed his palm flat against the table. He breathed once. Yeah, he said. I know that kind. Lin Chen pulled into the parking lot of Patty's Diner at 4:41. She saw the bikes before she saw anything else. 7 Harley-Davidsons in a line along the diner front. She registered them the way she registered everything. Fast and complete, the assessment of a nurse who had spent 10 years learning to read a room in the first 3 seconds. 7 bikes. Chapter patches visible on the vests of the men she could see through the window. A child in the corner booth. Maya. Safe. Reading. Or pretending to read. Lin sat in the car for a moment. She looked at the bikes. She looked through the window at the pushed-together tables. She could not see the man at the head from this angle. She could see Curtis. She had not seen Curtis in 12 years, but you did not forget Curtis, because Curtis was the kind of person the room remembered whether you wanted it to or not. Her hand on the steering wheel tightened slightly. She looked at her left shoulder through the fabric of her scrub top. She could not see the tattoo, but she knew it was there the way you always know about a mark that has been on your body for 14 years. The way you know about a scar, not because you feel it, but because the knowledge of it is simply part of the inventory of yourself. She got out of the car. Jack was at the diner door before she reached it. He had been watching the parking lot. He had positioned himself at the door with the specific intention of being the first thing she encountered rather than a surprise discovered from across the room. He understood that there was a version of this that was manageable and a version that wasn't, and the difference between them was about 3 seconds of preparation. Lin stopped. They were 6 feet apart. The September afternoon light fell across both of them with that particular Montana generosity. Lin looked at him. Jack looked at her. 14 years. Not a long time in certain measurements. In the measurement of what had happened in them, it was enormous. A life had been built. A child had been born and raised and had grown into someone who asked precise questions and ate huckleberry pie without being hurried. A woman had moved from Seattle to Montana and had become a nurse in a county hospital and had kept a secret that the keeping of had cost her something she had paid willingly and completely. Jack, Lin said. Lin, Jack said. Neither of them moved. Maya, Lin said. She's fine, Jack said. She's inside with Curtis. She's been eating pie and asking questions. Something moved through Lin's expression. Not quite a smile. The architecture of one. Questions, Lin said. She's 9, Jack said. She's very good at them. Lin looked at the diner window, at the shape of her daughter visible through the glass, book in her lap now, watching the door. How did you find? I didn't, Jack said. She found me. She walked up to my table and told me her mother had the same tattoo as mine. Lin closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were the same eyes Jack remembered from the hospital waiting room in Seattle. Dark and direct and carrying the specific quality of a person who has thought about most things in advance and has still occasionally been caught without preparation. She noticed it, Lin said. She did, Jack said. She noticed it, and she came over, and she described it exactly, and she told me what the character meant. He paused. You taught her Mandarin. Some, Lin said. The important words. Remain, Jack said. Lin looked at him. Why that one? Jack said. Of everything you could have put there. Lin looked at her shoulder. Because it was what I chose, she said. That day. To remain in the decision. To not walk back from it. She paused. Some decisions you have to keep choosing every day or they come undone. Jack was quiet. Did it, he said. Come undone? No, Lin said simply. Good, Jack said. Lin, Danny is coming. The information landed. Lin absorbed it without moving. He's in Billings, Jack said. 2 hours. I called him after Maya told me your name. How is he? Lin said. Her voice was even. The voice of a nurse asking about a patient. Except it was not that, and both of them knew it. He's alive, Jack said. He's been alive for 14 years. He learned to ride. He works with kids in juvenile programs in Billings. He has a dog named whatever the most ridiculous name you can imagine is, because Danny has always had the worst taste in dog names. Lynn made a sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a cry. The specific sound of someone receiving information they have wanted for a long time and did not allow themselves to go looking for, because looking would have changed what the giving was. I never looked, Lynn said. I want you to know that. I never looked to see if. I know, Jack said. I needed it to be clean, she said. I needed the decision to exist by itself without. I know, Jack said again. We looked for you. For 12 years we looked. Lynn looked at him. You shouldn't have done that, she said. No, Jack said. We should have. You don't get to do what you did and have nobody say thank you. That's not how it works. It worked fine, Lynn said. For you, Jack said. Not for Danny. Not for me. Lynn looked at the tattoo on his forearm. You got it the next morning, she said. The morning after you left the hospital, Jack said. I had the artist in at 7 a.m. He wasn't happy about it. Why that image? Because you told me what the character meant, Jack said. And I thought about it all night. Remain. And I thought about what Danny had done, which was remain. Through all of it. And I thought about what you had done, which was choose to remain in a decision that most people would have walked back from. He looked at the crane. A crane, because in the Japanese tradition, it means long life. And Danny needed long life. Lynn looked at the tattoo for a long time. It's better than mine, she said. Yours has better placement, Jack said. And Lynn Chen laughed. It was a real laugh, brief and genuine and slightly surprised at itself. The laugh of a person who has been carrying something heavy and has just been reminded that setting it down is permitted. Come inside, Jack said. Your daughter has been waiting very patiently and she has run out of pie. Lynn looked at the diner window. Maya was pressed against the glass, looking out at them. When she saw her mother looking, she raised her hand. Not a wave, just a raised hand. The specific gesture of a child telling a parent, I am here, and I am okay, and I have been watching everything. Lynn raised her hand back. Then she walked through the door of Patty's Diner. Maya watched her mother walk in. She watched Lynn stop just inside the door and take in the room. The pushed-together tables. The 6 men in leather, who were all watching her with varying qualities of the same thing, which was the recognition of a person you have been looking for. Maya watched her mother's face process all of it in the 3-second assessment that Maya had seen her mother perform in every room she entered for her entire life. Then Lynn walked to the booth. She sat down across from Maya. She looked at her daughter. Hi, Mom, Maya said. Hi, baby, Lynn said. Her voice was the voice she used when she was holding several things simultaneously and was choosing which one to address first. I noticed his tattoo, Maya said. I didn't know. I know you didn't, Lynn said. Are you okay? Lynn looked at her daughter, at the dark eyes and the precise attention, and the book closed in her lap. She reached across the table and tucked a piece of hair behind Maya's ear in the automatic gesture of a mother who has been doing that specific thing since her daughter was an infant. I'm okay, Lynn said. He said Danny is coming, Maya said. Lynn's hand stilled for a moment. He told you about Danny? Just the name, Maya said. And that he's 2 hours away. She paused. Who is Danny? Lynn looked at the table. She had known for 9 years that this conversation was going to happen. She had known it the way you know about a storm that is forming at a distance you cannot see yet. You know it from the quality of the air, from the specific feeling of something building toward something. She had simply not known it was going to happen in Patty's Diner on a Thursday afternoon because a 9-year-old had noticed a tattoo. Danny is Jack's brother, Lynn said. Jack is the man with the tattoo, Maya said. Yes. And Danny, Maya said carefully, is the reason you have yours. Lynn looked at her. How do you know that? Because Jack said the story belongs to you first, Maya said. And because you cried at the kitchen table when I was 7 and you thought I was asleep. And because remain means something specific and you never told me what. Lynn pressed her lips together. She looked at her daughter. She thought about Seattle, about the donor registry, about the morning she had seen Danny Reeves's profile and had sat with the information for 3 days before she made the call. She thought about what the doctor had said about compatibility, about what the coordinator had said about the process, about what she had said to Jack in the waiting room. Because I could. That's enough. She had meant it. She still meant it. The meaning of it had not diminished in 14 years. What she had not anticipated was that meaning it completely and keeping it clean and letting it exist as its own finished thing would not prevent it from remaining present. The tattoo was present. The memory was present. The choice was present in the way that real choices are always present because they become part of the structure of who you are rather than just things that happen to you. 14 years ago, Lynn said, I was registered as a bone marrow donor. Maya listened. A match came up, Lynn said. A man named Danny Reeves. He was very sick. The kind of sick that has a specific clock on it. And you matched? Maya said. I matched, Lynn said. I went to the hospital. I met his brother. She looked toward the pushed-together tables where Jack sat with his chapter, all of them giving this booth the privacy it was taking. I did the donation, and then I left. You left? Maya said. I didn't want thanks, Lynn said. I didn't want it to become something it wasn't. I wanted it to be a clean thing. A person needed something I had. I gave it. That was complete. Maya looked at her mother. But it wasn't complete, she said. Lynn looked at her. For you it was, Maya said. But not for them. Lynn was quiet. That's what Jack said, Maya said. Not exactly. But that's what he meant. When did you get so perceptive? Lynn said. I've always been perceptive, Maya said. You just don't always notice because you're busy. Lynn almost smiled. The tattoo, Maya said. You got it after. The same week, Lynn said. I needed to mark it somehow. Not to show anyone. Just to know it was there. To know I had done it and remained in the doing of it. Remain, Maya said. Remain, Lynn said. Maya looked at the table. Is Danny okay now? She said. Jack says he is, Lynn said. He works with kids. He has a dog with a terrible name, apparently. What's the name? I don't know yet. Can I ask Jack? Lynn looked at her daughter. Yes, she said. You can ask Jack. Maya slid out of the booth. She walked to the pushed-together tables. She looked at Jack. What's Danny's dog's name? She said. Jack looked at her. Macaroni, he said. Maya considered this. That's terrible, she said. I know, Jack said. But also kind of good, Maya said. Don't tell him that, Jack said. He's already impossible about that dog. Maya almost smiled. She walked back to the booth and relayed this information to Lynn, who received it with the expression of a woman who is trying not to smile and is not succeeding completely. The afternoon continued. Patty brought more coffee. Rio told Maya about the longest ride the chapter had done that year, which had involved 7 states, and a memorable incident in Wyoming that he declined to describe in detail in front of a 9-year-old. Curtis told her about his daughter, who was 11, and had recently decided she wanted to be a marine biologist, which Curtis supported, while privately knowing nothing about marine biology. Lynn sat in the booth and drank her coffee and watched her daughter talk to these men and watched the men talk to her daughter with the specific care that large, rough people sometimes have with small, precise ones. She looked at Jack across the room. He was watching the door. She understood. She looked at the door, too. At 4:57, a car pulled into the lot. It came fast and parked without a great deal of attention to the lines. The door opened. A man got out. He was 38 years old, and he had dark hair going gray at the temples, and he walked with the particular gait of someone who has been sitting in a car for 2 hours and is moving with urgency. He was not as large as Jack. He was built differently, leaner, with the specific quality of a person who has been through something that changed the density of him. He came through the diner door. He stopped. His eyes found Lynn across the room. Lynn looked at him. She had not seen this face before. She had donated to a name on a registry, to a file, to a medical profile. She had sat in a hospital and spoken to coordinators and doctors, and to Jack in the waiting room. She had not seen Danny Reeves. She was seeing him now. He was alive. He was standing in the door of Patty's Diner in rural Montana, and he was alive, and he had driven 2 hours from Billings without stopping, and he was looking at her with the expression of a man who has been trying to say something for 14 years and has just walked into the room where he can finally say it. Maya looked at him. She looked at her mother. She slid out of the booth. She walked to the push-together tables and sat down next to Curtis without being asked, because she understood that what was about to happen in the space between the door and the booth belonged to the people in it, and everyone else was just a room. Danny walked across the diner. He did not walk quickly. He walked with the deliberateness of a man who has imagined this moment many times and is now inside the real version of it and understands that the real version requires more care than the imagined one. He stopped at the booth. Lynn looked up at him. He was alive. That was the fact that organized everything else. He was 38 years old and standing on his own legs, and he had driven 2 hours to be here, and he was alive because 14 years ago a woman had looked at a registry and had seen his name and had made a decision that she had kept clean and complete and had marked on her body with a crane in flight and a single word in Mandarin. He sat down across from her. He did not say anything immediately. Lynn did not say anything either. They sat in the booth in Patty's Diner on Route 12 in Montana and looked at each other, and the looking was itself a kind of conversation that did not need to be translated. "I look for you," Danny said finally. "For 3 years." Jack looked for longer. "I know," Lynn said. "I'm sorry for that." "Don't be," Danny said. "I understand why." "Do you? You needed it to be clean," Danny said. "Jack told me what you said in the waiting room. Because I could. That's enough." He paused. "I've thought about those 5 words for 14 years. Lynn looked at the table. "I meant them," she said. "I know you did," Danny said. "That's what made them so hard to sit with." Lynn looked at him. "Most things people do for other people," Danny said, "they need something back. Not always money, not always acknowledgement, but something. The knowledge that it was received. The connection to the outcome." He looked at his hands. "You didn't need any of that. You just did it and left. And I've been trying to figure out for 14 years how a person gets to be that way." "I'm not particularly remarkable," Lynn said. "That's the most remarkable thing about you," Danny said. Lynn was quiet. "How are you?" she said. The nurse in her asking. The genuine in her asking. "Good," Danny said. "Really good. I work with kids in the juvenile system in Billings. I ride. I have a dog." "Macaroni," Lynn said. Danny blinked. "Jack told your daughter," Lynn said. "Your daughter told me." Danny looked across the diner at Maya sitting at the pushed-together tables next to Curtis. Maya was watching them with the direct attention she gave everything and did not look away when he looked at her. "She walked up to Jack's table," Danny said. "She noticed the tattoo," Lynn said. "You never told her?" "No." "Why?" Lynn looked at her left shoulder. "Because I needed to find the right version," she said. "Not the medical version. Not the version that made it about my decision. The version that made it about what it actually was, which is the simplest thing in the world." "What is it actually?" Danny said. "A person needed something," Lynn said. "I had it. I gave it." She paused. "That's the version I was waiting until she was old enough to understand without making it larger than it is." "It's large," Danny said. "Not to me," Lynn said. "To me it's just a Tuesday morning when I made a phone call." Danny looked at her for a long time. "I want to tell you something," he said. "And I need you to let me finish before you tell me it's not necessary." Lynn looked at him. "Okay," she said. "I am alive," Danny said. "I wake up in the morning and I am alive. I ride and I work and I have a ridiculous dog. And I have a brother who has looked for you for 12 years because he cannot figure out how to exist in a world where a debt like this goes unpaid." He paused. "I coach a 16-year-old kid in Billings named Marcus who came into the system at 14 and who is now talking about going to college. I coached him because I was there. I was there because you made a phone call on a Tuesday morning." His voice was even. "Marcus doesn't know your name, but in some way that isn't small and isn't reducible to a medical transaction, you are part of why Marcus is talking about college." Lynn looked at him. She looked at the table. She pressed her lips together. She breathed. "That's not fair," she said. Her voice was slightly different now. Not broken, just different. "No," Danny said. "It's not. But it's true." Across the diner, Maya was watching her mother's face. She watched the way it moved through things the way faces move when something is being processed that is larger than what the face was built to show. She watched her mother press her lips together. She watched her breathe. She watched and she understood. This was the real version. This was the version her mother had been waiting until she was old enough to receive. Not the medical version. Not the decision version. The Marcus version. The Tuesday morning version. The version where a small thing is not small because of what it touches, and what it touches touches something else, and what that touches reaches further than anyone who started the chain can see from where they were standing when they started it. Maya looked at Jack. Jack was watching his brother. His face had the expression of a man who has been waiting for something for a very long time and has just watched it happen and is sitting inside the completion of it. He felt Maya looking at him. He looked at her. She held up her hand. Not a wave, just a raised hand. The same gesture she had made to her mother through the window. I am here, and I see you, and what you did was real. Jack looked at her small raised hand. He raised his back. In the booth, Lynn said something to Danny that Maya could not hear. Danny said something back. Lynn looked at her shoulder. Danny looked at his hands. And then Lin Chen did what she had done once before at a kitchen table, when she thought her daughter was asleep. She cried. Not sad crying. The other kind. The kind where something was hard, and then it was over, and the being overness of it hits you all at once. Patty came out with a fresh pot of coffee and set it on the table, between them, without a word, because Patty had been running a diner for 31 years and understood that some tables needed coffee and not commentary. Maya looked at the window. The Montana evening was coming in the way Montana evenings come. All at once and completely. The sky going from gold to the specific blue that happens in the last light. The first suggestion of the temperature dropping. The feeling of a day that has been significant arriving at its natural end. She thought about the crane on her mother's shoulder. She thought about remain. She thought about what it meant to remain in a decision, to keep choosing it, to mark it on your body, so that every morning when you looked in the mirror, you were reminded that you had chosen something real and had not walked back from it. She thought about Danny in Billings coaching Marcus, who was talking about college. She thought about the chain of it, the invisible chain that ran from a Tuesday morning in Seattle to a juvenile program in Billings to a diner on Route 12 in Montana, where a 9-year-old had looked up from her book and noticed a tattoo and had walked across the room to mention it. She picked up her book. She opened it. She did not read it. She just held it open in her lap and watched the room and let the room be what it was. Jack came and sat across from her in the booth. You okay? He said. Yes, Maya said. Is she? Jack looked at the booth across the diner where Lynn and Danny sat with Patty's coffee between them. She will be, he said. Good, Maya said. She looked at his forearm, at the crane, at the character. I'm glad I noticed it, she said. Jack looked at her. So am I, he said. I notice most things, Maya said. My mom says it's going to get me in trouble someday. Your mom, Jack said, is not always right. Maya considered this. She's right most of the time, she said. About most things. Yeah, Jack said. She is. He looked at Lynn across the diner. Lynn was looking back. She raised her hand slightly. Jack raised his back. Maya watched this exchange. She watched the silent conversation of two people who had been connected by something enormous and had spent 14 years on opposite ends of it and were now in the same room and were learning what that felt like. She closed her book. She put it in her bag. Outside, the Montana night was arriving completely. The sky was the deep blue of a world that had finished one thing and had not yet decided what came next. Inside Patty's diner on the junction of Route 12 and County Road 7, a chapter of 7 men drank their coffee and told each other stories and gave 2 booths the privacy they needed. Patty made a fresh pie because some evenings require it. A dog named Macaroni sat alone in a car in the parking lot and was periodically checked on by Rio, who had appointed himself to this task without being asked. And in a corner booth, a 9-year-old girl who had noticed a tattoo and had walked across a diner to mention it sat with her book in her bag and her pie finished and the understanding of something she had not known this morning settled quietly into the place where understanding goes when it arrives through the real version rather than the waiting version. She thought about the word remain. She thought she understood it better now. You could remain in a decision. You could remain present. You could remain connected to something even across 12 years and 1,000 miles and a life built in a different direction. And sometimes a child could remain curious about a tattoo long enough to walk across a room. And everything could change.